it's very happy that you uh, gave us an opportunity to reflect further on an issue that we had some deliberations. Immediately after the Trump tariff, we had a stakeholder consultation here at the instance of our Honorable Finance Minister and Chairman, and we have given our feedback, and that has attracted much attention to the media over here.
Okay.
The chairperson of the day is our chairman of the
Professor Hariram, huh?
Harilal, Professor Harilal.
Harilal, yeah. Hi. Nice meeting you,
Nice meeting you.
I looked at your paper, that Kiran shared your paper with me, in EPW. Huh? It's very nice. I like the paper very much. It's a very nice policy document, I think, and it will be very useful for policymakers in India. So you have covered a lot of topics, connected with
In fact,
tariffs.
Professor Harilal had his initial PhD work itself on trade, India, EU integration. He started his research there. Then, unlike we are not that careerist, so we kind of work on different areas of issues that we think it is very relevant to, particularly him in case. Then he moved to decentralization. He worked very closely with Professor Isaac. They published a lot on that. And today in India, we have what is called, he is now chairing he is now the chairperson of the 7th Finance Commission, State Finance Commission.
Okay.
Most important thing which I would like to let you know is that we have a Loka Kerala mission, Loka Kerala Sabha. Essentially, it is something which is trying to give voice to non-resident Keralites in India, in Kerala. That the whole idea is actually his idea that initially got published in Malayalam. That he didn't publish it in English. I suppose. Yeah, but what I read was after discussing with him, he published in a Malayalam Madhuru Bhumi. That's actually much widely read thing here, and built upon that, the Kerala government acted, and the institutional structure has been made in place. So his article you have already said. So I'm very happy that there is a very interesting combination. You have analytically and theoretically and empirically articulated the implications of who really pays for Trump tariff. It is something which at that time I remember Joe Stiglitz said that he would fail Trump in his first semester trade class. That's what he said. That is an occasion for both of to listen from you as well as Professor Harilal. So without much ado, a welcome is always here. I don't want to formally welcome, but then it is an interesting forum wherein I thought it's a very interesting combination of Professor Kakwani and Professor Harilal. So now the floor is...
Actually, this is the first time I'm writing any paper on trade. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from Professor Harilal.
Very good. Okay, over to Professor Harilal.
Yeah. Okay.
Professor Joseph, Professor Kakwani, and friends. In fact, when the Trump's tariff came, all of us were shocked. In fact, no, there were discussions that such a thing is going to come. But we never really thought that it will be finally imposed. And, in fact, no, it was the response from everywhere. Nobody thought that United States of America will go this way. Therefore, it sort of raised a lot of debates, a lot of discussion. And in Kerala, Gulati Center took initiative. As Professor Joseph was saying, we had very interesting discussions. And then, of course, some of us have also tried to write about it in Malayalam and in English.
You know Malayalam?
Huh? So I have written in EPW also. See, at
Yeah,
that time,
I saw your paper on EPW.
At that point of time, uh, several questions were being asked,
Yeah.
and we didn't have clear answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we were probably trying to make theoretically informed speculations. And some of the answers, I think, we have done quite well. But on many questions,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with respect to incidence of these tariffs,
Mm-hmm.
how ultimately where it will go and rest and who will really pay, or who will share the cost of tariff. All
Mm-hmm.
such technical questions, we were not very.
I mean, that is what I am dealing with in my paper.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And as students of public finance here, I think the participants of this seminar will benefit immensely from this paper, because I read this paper. Kiran has sent it to me, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it.
Oh, thank you.
Because it is too theoretical and technical, but because it is so communicating. So it's written in such a simple, straightforward language, which we don't really come across these days in journals and all. But at the same time, it is taking things very seriously. It has taken the question in the right kind of analytical rigor, and has examined the question in detail, in depth, and has come up with very clear answers. Um, now, this is a time for you to probably start, and certainly I have many questions to ask, and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sure that the participants of this seminar will also have many questions. From
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I look forward to all the questions,
not
particularly from you.
from for students of public finance. Now, this question of incidence and how you can analyze incidence of a tariff or a tax, bringing in supply chain, value chain, and what will happen to markup across the chain. Those
Yeah,
kind of things will be of interest to many
yeah.
of our scholars. I know that some of you are working
Uh-huh.
on related themes. So, sir, we are now very keen to listen to you. After that,
Uh-huh.
we get into a.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me start my PowerPoint first, if I can.
It is going to be open from here.
Sir, I am sharing it here.
It's already done.
Okay,
See the screen now.
yeah, I can see the screen. Yeah.
Formatted the slides so that
Can I make it a larger screen?
yeah,
It is going to come.
is this fine?
Yeah, this is larger now.
Yeah, and whenever you want the slide to move, please tell next slide, please. That's enough. So I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Okay, yeah, okay, okay. That is great, Mhm. Okay, we can proceed with.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, you can change
Yeah,
the slide now.
in the slide, is it changing for you?
Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is changing for me. Okay, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay. So, this since the emergence of Trump this in the second term, the tariffs have become a very important topic, which I never thought before that they would be. But he is so obsessed with tariffs that he says it's a beautiful thing. The tariffs are the most beautiful things. I think my reason for him to be so much interested in the tariffs is that he thinks that he can get the revenue very quickly. That as soon as the imports arrive in USA, they have to pay the tariffs. So revenue is coming very quickly, And America, because they want to give a lot of, they want to give a lot of tax cuts to the millionaires and billionaires. So because they are running into trillions of dollars, because they have extended the last tax cuts to this year. So they are going into trillions of dollars. So Trump is worried that that he cannot manage, that cannot manage get the revenue enough from income tax. The taxing he's averse to putting taxes on that, but he thinks that these tariffs are a good way of collecting money quickly. But point is that in a year, he collected only $118 billion for the tariffs. And deficit is running every year. America runs a deficit of 2 trillion, more than 2 trillion. So I think he's trying to solve a big problem of deficit with the small, contribution from the tariffs, so but he's obsessed with that because he's getting the revenue, quick revenue. So, but his belief is that these tariffs are not paid by the Americans. They are paid by the exporting countries. For instance, if they are importing tariffs, importing from India, then India is paying their tariffs. So which means that he thinks that he has found out a great way of collecting money from the other countries, I mean, which is too good to be true. So that is why he's very obsessed with this tariffs, because he's getting the quick revenue from them. So, so there's nothing, free, that if he's right that Trump tariffs are being paid by the exporting countries, then if it is true that it is the ultimate free lunch, massive government revenue paid entirely by the other countries. I mean, but is this an economic miracle or economic mythology? That's the question I'm trying to answer in this presentation. So when Indian goods arrive in American port, U.S. importers write check to the Treasury for the tariff payments. So those dollars now directly go into American government coffers. Yet this observable transaction is merely the opening of a complex act of the economic drama. So the critical question is not who writes the check to the government, it is who ultimately bears the economic burden after all India, the export ripple through several supply chains, and pricing decisions. There are many pricing decisions in between and markups and all that. So it becomes a complex issue. And I haven't seen any discussion on this different stages of supply chain. There are several. I have identified 6 supply chains stages, but I haven't seen any debate, about it. I've been listening a lot about many prominent professors in America, but nobody has talked about different stages of supply chain. So I don't know whether I'm not well read about this, but I haven't seen anything. Maybe Professor Harilal will know about it, that whether there has been a debate or has been discussion about different stages of supply chain. Okay. So now I will just present my model. I'll try to explain in a simple way. So who pays the tariff? Who must follow me the money through each stages of global supply chain? So here I give an illustration for India where Trump has imposed 50% tariff on Indian imports. Now, this single policy intervention triggers numerous economic adjustments that ultimately determine whether America consumes or Indian exports bear the burden. So the first stage is manufacturing. That when India is exporting goods to America, it has to manufacture in India. So the journey begins in India, Indian factories producing, say, textile, jewelry, and agriculture products, and etc. So supposing India's total export, is producing XM amount of the XM billion dollars destined for American market. They are producing that much goods. So the production of the output incurs in factor costs such as wages, profits, rents, and numerous other production costs. So this is the first stage. The manufacturing is the first stage, which is done with the cheap labor, and other capital and other production costs. Now, so exporters in India, they don't just export the simple ship the raw material costs. They add markup. That exporters in India. So markups, they cover about logistic, insurance, shipping, profit margins, and so this creates a landed value of the goods which are exported to America. So I call it XL is a landed value. So XL is given by, that the total output which is produced in India for the export in America, and landed value is that you add exporters markup, which is ME. ME is the exporters markup. So this is the equation A1. And then third stage is that tariffs are calculated on the landing value, that whatever is the landed value declared, which are going to the USA. So tariffs is calculated on that. So the total tariff is given by landed value times the rate of tariff rates. So T is the tariff rate. So this is the equation A2, the stage 2, 3. So we have three stages, stage 1, 2, and 3. Now then stage 4, after paying the tariffs, the importers or wholesalers in America, their cost jumps to A3, that XM is the production, but 1 plus ME takes account of the exporters markup, and then T is the tariff rate. So in India, it's about 50% now. So then these importers in America, they have also incurred cost, that warehousing, distributing, custom clearance, and profits to selling to the retailers. So they have a markup of, say, MI, that importers markup. MI is the importers markup. So you get equation A4, which gives you how much is the cost borne by the retailers. So the retailers' cost are the production cost, exporters' markup, and tariffs, and importers' markup. So it's a very simple equations. I thought these are very simple equations that just you are adding up the markups, So then retailers markup, the retailers have to do, incur a lot of cost. For instance, they have to do marketing, storing, rent, So marketing should cover. So they apply their markup for MI. So setting the consumer price at, the XC is the consumer price, that retailers they sell to the final consumers, the products, the imports. So XC is the final consumers cost, paid by the consumers, and which again includes, that uh, production cost, exporters cost, tariff cost, and importers cost, and the retailers markup, retailers cost, which is about. So I will tell how much I am assuming that. So this is all, that the product reaches the final consumer, and this is what they are required to pay by the retailers. But then when consumers, dilemma is that when the tariffs are applied, prices of import rise. And so the consumers are unwilling to pay high prices. When prices go up, then they tend to reduce some demand. So they can cut down their purchases of imported goods. So this is a demand effect responding to price increases. When price increases, the demand goes down. Now, point is that India generally, the most of the exports which go to USA, they have a low price elasticity. They are not the luxury items. They have the footwear, clothing, and jewelry maybe is an expensive item, but generally they have a lower risk elasticity. So what they do, they because of the low elasticity, the cost of this. They reduce the consumption so that they can pay less price. So MD is the demand effect, which reduces the total expenditure borne by the final consumer. So this is the final equation. A6 is the final equation. So tariffs starting from India and reaching the final consumers. So from A1 to A6. So there are just 6 equations and 6 stages. But you can have many more because practical life may be, many which can become very complicated, but the framework will be the same. That, for instance, exporters cost, for instance, I have included, among exporters costs also, I'm including shipping and insurance, which can be quite substantial, so one method is that we can exporters markup, we can divide into separately shipping and insurance and exporters profit, exporters handling of the goods which are exporting to America. So you can, go on, you can have many stages, but I have, just for illustrative purposes, I have used about 6 very different stages of supply chain. Now here I'm just showing here in this slides that there's a manufacturing cost. What are the different kinds of cost, So there's a manufacturing cost, exporters cost, markup, which includes shipping also. So, and then third is the third one is the tariff addition, that how much is the tariff, because tariff increases the cost, and then importers and markup, how much is the importers are contributing to the cost, then how much retailers are contributing the cost, and then there's the demand effect. So all these costs are different stages of supply chain. So all these add up to total consumer expenditure. Yeah, total consumer, final consumers, how much is their cost? So if you add all that, so you can calculate the percentage contribution of each, that how much is the percentage contribution of, manufacturing cost, export markup cost, shipping cost, tariff cost, and importers and retailers, and then the demand effect. So there are many, it's not only the, the tariff is not the only thing, which increases the cost because there are many other costs, people are having markups here. So some of these will add up to the total cost to the final consumers. Okay, so it's a very simple model actually, not very complicated. So this is just the illustration what I'm doing. Now, thing is that, given this model, if you know all that, I have got 6 parameters, that 6 parameters are that production cost, how much is the production, and then different kinds of markups and demand effect. So if you have 6 parameters, this model has only 6 parameters. So if you know these 6 parameters, then you can know everything about the tariffs, how they are working and who is contributing what. So this is interesting that in the sense that these 6 parameters, I believe that their value could be estimated from the trade data. Every country must have a trade data because I'm not familiar with that. Professor Harilal will be knowing about it, that can we calculate all these markups from the trade data? If we can calculate all these markups from the trade data, then we know everything about tariffs, who is paying and how much, who is paying and how much they are paying. Whether Indian exporters are paying or whether American importers are paying. And, so this model will clearly gives you the whole information if you know these 6 parameters. Okay, so I think I want the discussion on this, whether that means that we can analyze this whole issue, who pays the tariffs, by looking at these 6 parameters. And so which means that this framework can provide an evidence-based, analysis of tariffs. Evidence-based, you can collect the data. But in this presentation, because I don't have access to trade data and all that, so I'm making the assumption that exporters' cost is, the total is 100 billion, supposing India is exporting 100 billion worth of goods, and exporters' cost is, I'm assuming that, oh, maybe I go back. Yeah, okay. Maybe what I'm doing is I'm assuming that exporters' markup is 10% and tariffs are 50%, and importers' markup is 20%, retailers' markup is 30%, and demand effect, people react to, when prices go up, people cut down the demand. So the demand is about 5%. So these are, I have just specified these parameters because I didn't have the trade data. But they seem to be very realistic to me because in developing countries, markups are much smaller than in the developed countries. That's my experience. In Australia also, the markups are very high, much higher than in developing countries, So that's why I have kept higher markup for importers, because developed countries, their cost of producing and distributing and doing all that is quite high. So their markups are also very high. I mean, even here in Australia, some of the, goods which are their markup, they buy from the wholesale and then markup retail can be 50%, 100%, even 200%, markups, depending on what product they are selling. Particularly luxury goods, the markups are very high. But not inelastic goods, markups will be low. So this is the idea, but we can apply this model to to using the actual data from, from trade data. We can estimate all these parameters, then we know everything about it. So in this table, I have total cost, the cost which is borne. So manufacturing cost is say 100 billion, and exporters cost is 10 billion, 10%. And tariffs are calculated on the landed value. So tariffs are calculated 100 plus landed value is 100 plus 10, 110. So 50%, that will be 55%. And then importers cost, that you apply 20% markup. So their cost is 33. So it increases. Exporters cost is of 10. Then it increases to 33. And then retailers cost another 20%. Importers cost is 20%, another 30% retailers cost. So it goes up to 59.4%. So you see that this cost increases very, cumulatively. And then consumer demand reduces by 12.9% and so on. So the total consumer burden, the consumers pay for all the imports is $244.5 billion. So in percentage terms, you can see that manufacturing cost is 40.9%, exporters cost is 4.1%, and tariffs are 22.5%, and so on. So these are the percentages. So it's interesting that tariffs cost is 22.5%, and manufacturing and exporting costs. So the Indian exporters and manufacturers, they contribute 45% to the total cost. Tariffs contribute 22.5%, and importers and retailers, they contribute 37.8%. And the demand, they reduce the demand by 5.3%, so total adds up to 100. So this is a useful sort of decomposition, tell what are the causes of this, because the total cost which is paid by the consumers, that tells us how much is the inflation rate, because they are paying in the form of additional, increases in prices. So the inflation rates are determined by how much final consumers are paying, So if the payment increases, then inflation also is very high. So this is the basic table of this presentation. Now then, I was just looking at the world without tariffs, so same equations, the final consumers. If tariffs were zero, supposing Trump decides, Trump is always changing every day. He decides that he wants to bring down the tariffs to zero. So the first equation, A8, is that how much consumers will pay if there was no tariff, zero tariff. And then A9 is the actual, how much they are paying with the tariffs. So this is a contribution. The equation A9 is the contribution which represents the true consumer burden. So it is not the government revenue, but it is a pure deadweight loss, created by the different markups. So we have to look at that. So next I produce, so these are the different, in this table you can see that these are the markups, maybe I did it earlier. So these are the markups, 10, 15, and percent, and then cost in $1 billion. So cost is 100, it started with 100 cost. It goes to 110 when it lands in USA. It becomes 165 when you are adding the tariffs, and it becomes 198, cost becomes 198, importers cost in the USA. And then retailers cost, it becomes 257. And then after adjusting for the demand, it becomes 244.5. So you see that tariffs are only 55 billion, but cost to the consumers increases cumulatively. I mean, that's an important point to remember, that even a little, extra tariffs you have, the cost can increase quite substantially. Okay. So I think this I have discussed already. It's the same thing, I'm just repeating here. That so that lending cost is 10%, 10% of the exporter's cost. So it becomes lending cost in America at 110, not million, billion, huh? It's not million, it's a billion, huh? And then you add the 20% of the importer's markup, it cost becomes 198 billion. And then if you have a retailer's cost of 30 billion, it becomes 257 billions. Okay. So tariffs, now I'm saying that tariffs are inflationary because landed value is 110 billion, and then landed value, and then if you have a importer's cost 20%, it becomes 165. Then 55 billion is the. So these are the different costs that you can see that how quickly the cost can increase. When you have tariffs. Tariff is 55 billion. So if you take 92.4 is the markup of American, retailers and importers. Their markup, add all those markups is 92.4. And now if you divide by 55 is the tariffs. So ratio is 1.65. What does it mean? It means that every dollar of tariff you collect, the government collects every dollar of tariff, the consumers will pay $2.65. That 1.65 they pay because of the importers and because of the importers and retailers, and then and plus $1 of the so $1 of the tariffs. So total cost to the consumer is $2.68. So the government collects only $1, and consumers have to pay $2.68. So you can see that tariffs are inflationary. They are causing inflation because if consumers' cost increases, it is inflation. Simple way you call it, the prices have gone up. So to get $1 of tariff, $2.68 prices will go up. Consumers will pay $2.68. So this is quite sensitive, that these markups are very sensitive. They can increase, cumulatively, increase the cost to the consumers, and that means inflation. When cost of the consumers increases, that means that there's inflation. Now I'm looking at what happens when tariffs are increased. Supposing Trump, One day he wakes up in the morning, he said, no, I want to increase the tariffs on India from 50% to 60%. I mean, he's very erratic, he can do it just by, when he wakes up in the morning, when he puts uh, puts on the social media, his ideas. So supposing it increases 50 to 60%, he increases the tariffs. So what happens in that case is that so in this case, what happens is that that revenue, the tariff revenue increases by $11. That if you increase the tariffs, 11 billion, so 50% to 60%, if you increase the tariff rate, then the government gains extra $11 billion, by increasing the tariff rate. But retailers and wholesalers, they also increased 6.2 billion. Their revenue is increased. So this is an amazing result in my view, that when you increase the tariff, what happens is both government benefits and also all the this corporations, our importers, wholesalers and retailers, they are also benefiting. Both are benefiting if Trump increases the tariffs from 50 to 60%. Now, I think this is an amazing result, that both are benefiting, both private sector and as well as government sector, both are benefiting. So it's a great incentive for Trump to keep increasing the tariffs, because government will get the money, and also the private sector who's supporting Trump, the corporations and businesses and all that. So they are also benefiting from it, so both are benefiting, so it is better to keep increasing the tariff rates. So this is, I think, in my view, amazing result. So now who pays the tax, tariffs? Now, what happens, as I told you, that when prices are increasing, consumers are reducing their demand. Okay? So, actually the 55 billion, when the 50% tariff, so government is getting 55 billion. Now, which is actually contributed by the consumers. But interesting thing is that can India pay, how India will pay the tariffs, because if Trump is right that exporting countries are paying the tariffs, then India has to reduce their prices. They give discount to the tune of $55 billion, So they are exporting 100 billion, and then 55 billion, they have to reduce the cost. I mean, that is not very practical. That's not possible at all. That 55%, they give discount to please the Trump, if the Trump is paying, if India is paying for his tariffs, so which is impossible to do that. So that's the point I'm making here, is that Trumps are not paid by the exporting countries. India cannot reduce, because India is already, the production cost is also very low wages and, low cost, lower rents and all that. They are already, providing cheaper goods to America. They cannot reduce further, to the tune of $55 billion out of 100 billion, the exports they give, So that is also so the point I'm making is that India cannot afford, what India will do it, find other markets instead of bypass America and don't export anything to America if they have to give discount of 55%, So this is, I think, the way I look at it. But then maybe that India does not give full subsidy, that does not cover all the cost of the tariffs, 55%, but it can give partially, that it can give some, so how much it should, so let's look at it, calculate this. Okay, for instance, supposing India, because of the tariffs and all that, because of the tariffs, the consumer demand, export demand decreases, right? So India suffers that. The India doesn't like that because export demand, they are exporting to USA and then demand goes down. So what they do is, okay, we give the subsidy to please Trump, we give the subsidies so that there's no reduction in export demand. You reduce the price yourself so that there's no reduction in export demand. So that I calculated from this model, the subsidy comes to 12.9 billion. This is a partial subsidy, that not the entire, 55 billion, but only 12.9 billion. They have to give discount to keep the same exports to America. So, but I feel that 12.9% discount is also pretty large, very large for India to subsidize, whether can they afford that kind of subsidy, particularly in agricultural goods in India. Can they afford that kind of discount, so there were another point I was thinking about it, that America wants to enter into agricultural sector in India, agricultural sector, but India is not allowing them to do that. But if India says, okay, we also put tariffs on agriculture, you can come to the India agricultural sector, you can export your things to India, but the subsidies which you are giving to American farmers, which are the products which are going to India, we will increase the tariffs on that. Say equivalent amount of the tariffs we increase. But Trump won't agree to that. That's one way to negotiate with Trump, that if you are, farmers are subsidized, then if the farmers are subsidized, then subsidy, is same thing as putting a tariffs, subsidizing, agriculture sector or subsidies is similar to, that prices is a similar idea as the tariffs. So India says, okay, we increase the tariffs on agricultural products when you come to the Indian market, but it has to be more than the subsidies you are giving to your farmers. So this is another way they can, negotiate with American policymakers. Okay, so I just conclude that as I already pointed out, that if we know the 6 parameters, we can get an evidence-based analysis who is paying the tariffs, who's really paying the tariffs, and using the evidence-based analysis, we can calculate that. So that's an important point, that we can easily do it. But I think that GIFT can take up this issue, and I hope that they can, do the calculations on these tariffs by collecting actual data from the trade data, all these parameters, and then you calculate, apply this model to that. So the path forward requires acknowledging economic reality rather than political convenience. The tariffs are largely taxes on American consumers, not foreign producers. So they generate less revenue than their economic cost. As I was saying that, the America is running the budget deficit, $2 trillion a year. And, the tariffs, they are able to collect only $118 billion in a year. So it doesn't make sense to put tariffs at all. That there's no need to put the tariffs. They have to deal with the budget deficit separately. There are policies to deal with budget deficit differently. So that is another point that we have to be concerned about. So economic analysis cannot dictate policy choices, but it can clarify trade, clarify the trade issues. On the tariff policies, trade-offs are clear, large consumer losses, modest government. When you have a trade war, which means that there is definitely social welfare loss. I want to extend this whole analysis to social welfare loss too, rather than just giving these figures. So that's another thing I'm thinking about, that extending this paper to social welfare function. So I better stop here. And questions? Many questions?
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah.
Very interesting presentation. And the model which you presented, I think
I cannot see you. Can I get out of this?
Can you see us now?
Let me get out. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Professor, we enjoyed your presentation. And I think all of us will appreciate the logical arrangement behind the model you presented. And personally, I believe that the parameters you estimated, even without really going into the trade data, they sound very agreeable to kind of common sense. But as you suggested, we should probably try and use the real trade data to estimate those parameters to really finally give a convincing empirical testing.
Yeah.
GIFT can certainly take up this.
Yeah, that will be more convincing, because not just, making up the markups. That will be very, very convincing. And I think the GIFT can easily take up this issue. Huh?
But then there is a practical difficulty about which I thought I'll just say a few words. See, the international trade data will give a lot of information required for testing some of these hypotheses that you put forward. But unfortunately, the production side you will not get from the trade data, like the markup, the traders markup or the producers market, etc., will be difficult. But there is a way out. Now there is correspondence between industrial classification and trade classification. So in the case of organized industry, you get data. But when you come to a country like India and informal sector, agriculture sector, the data on markup of farmers or firms in the trading business related to farming, etc., it's very difficult to get corresponding data. But still, you can use the secondary data and then supplement it with other kind of information about the markup in general and the kind of conclusions that you drew. I mean, your kind of general assumptions about the markups in underdeveloped countries, in the farming, etc. I think it can be empirically proved using available studies and other sources of data. Obviously, the markup in India in general will be low, particularly in areas like agriculture and related areas. So, in fact, now when the struggle to distribute the burden of tariff comes, uh, the traders in India or producers in India will be in a difficult spot to share the burden of tariffs. Even if they wanted to,
Mhm.
they are not in a position, as you rightly pointed out. They will not be in a position. But uh, if they are facing monopsony on the other side, if they are facing monopsony on the other side, which is the case in the case of many of these value chains, like large retailers who control the world market, then it will be difficult for Indian producers, the peasants, small producers, to bargain and get a fair deal. So there will be problem, and the government will be under pressure to subsidize. But the government in India, because of the fiscal policy constraints, they will not be able to really subsidize production in a significant way. Then, the government can shift the burden of the exporters by allowing free fall of the currency, which is already happening. And in fact, many third world countries, many developing countries who are competing in the international market in these areas, across these countries, you see, the value of currency coming down. And that's one way of probably transferring the burden of tariffs, etc., which they face in the international market, transferring that burden to the rest of the economy through the exchange rate. And that probably is already happening. And then that's one observation I would like to make about the data. But I have
But I don't know why, I mean, trade data, supposing not available, I mean, say America, USA, we can ask, the Walmart or Costco, how much is their markup? Average markup, they will give you, that not is not difficult to find out from them. Similarly here in India also, similarly you can ask, that because you are not serving individuals, that we collect so much data on national sample survey, individuals income, wealth, complicated data we collect, but this is much simpler data, the markup, that how much they are, putting up the markup. Maybe they will not be very accurate, but there will be some, much easier to get,
Yeah, sure. From the other side, maybe, markup of many of these Walmart and all, there are already studies. And here on this side also, there are other studies which can be used. But then what I was trying to point out is that, ready to use secondary data, which is which can be readily matched with the trade data. That is not there. But if it is organized industry like pharmaceuticals,
Yeah, okay.
industry data which can be
Okay, then why don't you first, the gift can take up, that, okay, let's do formal sector first, and how their tariffs are working there and how the markups are, that should be more straightforward than collecting national sample survey data,
Kerala can initiate some studies in the areas where Kerala is interested, like Kerala is exporting to US and other Western markets, like grain products or spices from Kerala. Related areas.
Yeah, we are talking about average markups, not only, I mean, we can get some idea of the average markups, Huh?
Yeah. So it's possible to undertake analysis. Yeah, now, we have many other participants in this seminar. Some of them
Okay.
ask questions. I'll reserve my concerns and questions to
But I ask you a question that, do you think that what I'm, because this is my first experience with the trade, study, do you think that, that this is a worthwhile study that, can be very helpful to understand the tariffs and all that?
No doubt, there is no doubt, because see, uh, you know, here you are bringing in supply chains and the complicated stages involved in trade. And in fact, no, these things will have to, these nodes in the supply chain will have to be really examined if you want to really think about the impact of tariffs. A general discussion on tariffs will not do. You will have to really get into the supply chains and different nodes. And at different nodes, you have the question of markets, market power there. So all those things are important, and you are addressing those many of those questions. Some of them at the level of theory and concepts. You have not really taken the data, but then it's you have posed the questions analytically. It is for others to take up those things at the level. Yeah. So we'll ask our students and other parts.
Yeah, but I want to ask Professor Joseph whether he will take up, his institute will take up working further on this.
I think it's a very interesting question. I would rather keep quiet, but at the same time, at the level at which you have analyzed the problem, you have completely kept you also wrote it, the question of pass through you have not really looked at. The question is, suppose you take the secondary data of the type which is available. I don't think that it is possible to do, because you can at best to go up to unit value. Unit value, in fact, concedes more than what it reveals. The kind of analysis that you would love to do, that you propose, is very relevant, but that has to be done through legwork. For example, what happens to the prawns here on account of the tariff hike is very much contingent upon how our competitors in Morocco or, say, for example, in Vietnam respond. I think without taking into account the market power question, which how much we so the whole response, whether who will take the burn, the cost is very much contingent, very much dependent upon on the product under question. Suppose something it is a very, very much a life-saving medicine that America needs, it will naturally, they will get it. On the other hand, suppose you are taking, for example, a primary commodity on which there are n number of competitors who are all produced, this is all produced by poor farmers, what will happen is that the pass-through, they will be ultimately, it will be borne by the producers here. So that markup automatically deciding, it will be by retailer, the wholesaler, the supermarket. That is slightly difficult. That we can actually do as an ex post analysis as a result of this. How it happened in the case of pharmaceutical, what it happened in the case of machinery, how it happened in the case of primary commodities like, say, for example, prawns and fisheries and whatever it is. That kind of inquiry may be much more possible. Otherwise,
maybe that we should focus on pharmaceutical products first.
If you take Comtrade, I don't think that the secondary data of the type that is available at this juncture is not really amenable for any kind of analysis of the type that we really, that's the right thing. I'm not very sure, but it is a very interesting thing. I would say that we can discuss with people. In fact,
my feeling is that pharmaceutical products which go from India to America, the pharmaceutical companies there who are selling the pharmaceutical products, they put markups as high as 100, 200, 500%. That's why medicines are so expensive in America compared to Australia. So their markups are very high. So the tariffs, also, with high markups, the impact of tariffs goes up very highly, quickly, because it's a cumulative, because tariffs are calculated on the, after you have, added the markups, lending value or adding up the markups. So it's very, tariffs can become, cumulatively very highly inflationary.
You made the point,
Professor, in fact, now we should be giving some time to the floor to raise questions.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, when we talked about the welfare loss due to the tariff, cannot we consider the loss in output of some sectors and also how unemployment in that sector has been impacted by the tariff? Can we tell the how the welfare implication can be? eh, eh, Tariff impacted the welfares of India and also US. Can we look at that?
Professor, I hope you got it. Could you hear? Could you hear the question? Could you hear the question, Professor?
Can you look at my side? Look at me rather when you are speaking.
Saying that when we want to analyze the welfare implication of tariff, cannot we look the how it impacts the output of the specific sectors, which is uh, targeted by the tariff, and also how it impacts the employment in that sector? Can we see how micro level how it impacted the welfare?
Professor,
I think the employment I see differently. What I see, the employment issue, unemployment issue, because for instance, America, USA, supposing, the Indian exports are reduced in America because of the tariffs, reduced. So India gets worried about that, that India gets worried that the sectors, the exports they are sending to America, there will be unemployment in those sectors because they cannot produce enough to export, to America. So the unemployment comes that way in exporting countries. That uh, if in America the exports drop, the consumers stop, reduce their consumption of Indian imports, then it can affect the employment. Unemployment in India can increase in particular sectors. And so then what India can do about it? They say, okay, we reduce the price or subsidize to the extent that we maintain the same level of exports. That's the one way I was looking at it, and it came out to be 12.9% of the, that discount they have to give or reduce the prices by that much, So that's the way I look in unemployment situation, but I didn't understand how you are looking at unemployment in production, and what is the connection with the tariffs, I don't know.
so other questions anymore?
Hello, hello,
Yeah,
hello. Am I audible?
yeah. I can see
Thank you
only
so.
Muhammad Anwar, huh?
You are
Yeah,
audible.
yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for really good presentation on the impact of tariff on and the role of different kind of intermediaries involved in the
Yeah,
transactions between two countries. And
yeah.
what you have said is that when we change the tariff,
Do
then
you mind
it has.
introduce yourself?
Mhm.
Hello.
Hello, Mohammed Anwar, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. So I am Mohammad Anwar. I'm a research scholar in Department of Economics, Jamia Millia Islamia, and my
I
supervisor is.
cannot see your face, huh? I can see your name only.
Okay. Can you see my
Oh,
face, sir?
yeah. Okay, okay.
So I
All right.
am I'm a researcher in Department of Economics, Jamia Millia Islamia under Professor Zakaria. You
Okay.
know him. So
Yeah, I know him very well. Yeah.
yeah. So sir,
Sakshi, the favorite of Professor Kakwani.
yes, sir. So, sir, I basically want to know. So, what you have presented is you have also talked about the lower level workers and at the same time the intermediaries involved and the consumers. So, when something changes, something like tariff changes, then it is having the backward linkages and it is kind of impacting those who are working at the lower level, the floor level.
Yeah.
So what we can see is there is kind of interconnectedness between those who are managing this whole system and those who are actually working at the base level of the system. So if tariff changes, then is it possible that we can track the movements or we can track the interactions between those two parties, like more technically we can call it like formal sector or informal economy, right? So when tariff changes, then what kind of impact it does have on the formal sector intermediaries and at the same time those who are
Yeah.
working in the informal economy. And if we can track it, then we will be able to estimate the impact of this tariff on different participants who have participated in this whole activity in any. You can take example of any specific commodity like textile. So
Yeah.
we can look at that specifically. So is it possible to track those interactions? If yes, then how we should proceed further for that particular in that particular direction? I want to have your comments on that.
Okay. Uh, when prices go up, the demand goes down, correct? Price of a commodity goes up, the demand goes down, right? But how much it goes down depends on the price elasticity. Okay. Now, if price elasticity is very low, like, the India is sending the goods, like a textile and shoes and all that, the price elasticity is very low. So the reduction in export will be small, so India doesn't have to worry about the reduction in export, or unemployment, will not be affected much. But if India is exporting luxury goods or jewelry and all that, then India should worry about, that in that sector, because the export can go down if prices go up. Export can go out sharply then when the prices go up. So, so this is the connection I see. Uh, but your question about informal sector is a very difficult question. I don't know. In India, informal sector, I was listening other day that GDP estimates of the, formal and informal sectors. Big debate going on in India. And that's very, very difficult to get the growth rates of GDP in informal sector. It's very impossible to do it. So what Indians are doing, using the growth rates of the uh, growth rate of the formal sector and applying on the informal sector. So which means that they are, GDP, they're overestimating the GDP, that was the debate I heard about, So informal sector is very difficult, but I would expect that informal sector, that the markups will be very low in informal sector, because, their wages are very low, and then, so I would expect that markups will be very, very low uh, in informal sector. So we have to take into account of that, the how much markup, we can.
But sir, what we can see is in the informal economy, marks if we look at through a market framework, uh, so other person I so sorry I don't remember the name. They have talked about a market framework that is monopsony market structure or oligopolistic market structure. So if you look at that structure where there is asymmetry of power, at one hand in the input market we have the huge intense competition, and on the other hand those who are the buyers of those inputs and all, they have kind of monopsony with them. So if this kind of setting is there, then the markups will be higher. And
Mhm.
if the markups will be higher, then what we can infer from it is the amount of money or the income that is going to the workers is going to be very low. So
Yeah.
so in this whole process, what is happening is the workers are the ones who becomes the arena for cost reduction. And 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 but we don't have any specific data or study on this particular thing to see like what how change in tariff or change in any policy in India if affects the formal as well as the informal economy at the same time.
Yeah, I would expect that larger companies, like, you have, uh, larger companies like Google and all that, they charge you fee, Netflix and all that. They have a monopoly, so they can put markup very high. It depends on how much they can sell. But markups will be very, very high in the big, big companies. But smaller companies, they are struggling. That markup will be very low. Because they want to sell the product. And competition may be much more among the smaller businesses than the larger ones. The larger ones, there's no competition. One big companies, they control everything.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can we take up one or two more questions if questions?
Yeah, okay.
I think it's getting too late for Professor Kakwani also, you must.
No, it's fine, don't worry about me. It's only 10:30.
I think, Professor Kakwani, we will see whether I think this study, I think the issue that you raised is very important. I think something which is pertinent to see as an exposed analysis, who has taken the burden? It's quite possible that in some of these cases, in fact, my daughter in the US says that her cost has also gone up. Of course, it will happen. At the same time, it is quite possible that the Walmart and Kmart and all marts will say to our desperate producers over here, saying that, look, we are not willing to pass on this tariff to our customers over there. How much can you take? If you are not able to take, I'll buy from elsewhere. So naturally, it's quite possible that our poor farmer, our poor producers will be forced to kind of offer the thing and they bear the whole cost. This is something which we have to really examine. It's an empirical question.
Yeah.
That I think I think this is.
Let us now conclude the.
Yeah, I think you should do that. I think
seminar because that's already 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Anyway, I have some framework of tariffs.
Yeah, in fact,
So it can be extended, I mean, it's just a preliminary, idea that I got and I written it out,
Professor, it provokes a lot of new research. There is considerable scope to follow up. In fact, in conclusion, I would like to say one or two things. One, see, the impact of tariffs on individual tariff lines. That's very interesting. And, you were doing that kind of an exercise. But collectively on the international trading system, the implications of the United States of America behaving in the way it has been in the last 1 or 2 years, it will have implications for the international trading system, the WTO,
yeah, of course, yeah.
and other arrangements at the global level, and also on international relations in general, the global political system in general. That should also be studied, and many of the people who are commenting on Trump tariffs were bringing in those questions as well. Now, the second point, in the context of our discussions, there were mentioned about the need to study individual product lines to see who is really taking the burden. In fact, I would like to mention literature in this context. We have large number of supply chain and value chain studies, and that's a very rich literature which traces such policy impacts, not only of tariffs, but other policy changes also across the value chains, and how the value is distributed across the chain, and how it affects different nodes, different players in the chain. And in the context of Kerala, in the context of India, developing countries in general, there are many studies. In CDS, we have interesting studies, including on marine products. Now we have studies on cashew, marine products, many MPhil and PhD dissertations are there. And the question from Maud Anwar, and he was asking about studies available. In fact, no, there are many studies globally also. It's a very, very important area with a lot of interesting studies. Professor Joseph was mentioning about the possibility of taking up some studies at the gift level. And your,
At what level?
if it had provoked such a
Uh-huh.
thinking in Joseph, that's a good thing.
Mhm.
Because now we have this marine sector, marine and spices sector.
Mhm.
Professor Joseph has done some studies in the area of spices. So he's a
Mhm.
cardamom expert too.
Yeah.
So he started his research in the area of cardamom.
Okay.
So in fact, no, there is scope for studying. Particularly, it's very important to study the impact of marine products on
Mhm.
marine products sector. Whether who has really paid the price of Trump tariffs, and how the Kerala industry, Kerala's marine sector had really coped up. How it has survived, how it managed to share the burden.
Yeah.
A project can be taken up. It's quite
Yeah,
good.
I want to make one point that,
In the Kerala
you know,
country,
I have given,
this was being raised up.
yeah, quickly I make the point that I have given the illustration of India and USA only, yeah. But that doesn't mean that, you know, we cannot do other countries. You know, the bilateral trade, you know, goes on every, you know, in the world. Now, you know, the India is, you know, getting away from, you know, with the 50% tariffs. That's very, very high tariffs, you know, America has put. So India is also diversifying and having more trade relations with other countries, you know, and bypassing America, you know, they can, you know, they should. Why not BRICS can, you know, take up, you know, have trade with each other rather than worry about, because BRICS GDP total is almost 37, almost 40%, you know, of the world GDP, you know. Hmm?
So let us hope that you will be visiting Kerala, gift, and
Hopefully.
spending some time taking classes here, giving seminars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. With that, let me.
Okay, great.
So, thank you, sir, for your time. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, indeed, very nice. Thank you very much.
okay.
You provoked us adequately. Only thing is our plate is too full. That is the only problem, because
Uh-huh.
we'll see whether we could
Uh-huh.
try to take up this issue. At
Yeah.
least we can provoke Marine Export Promotion Council or someone we'll explore the possibility. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
But this is a hot topic.
Very
So
important problem.
it has to be given priority, you know.
You are given a way forward. We given a broad approach to
Yeah,
take.
yeah.
We will get back to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you very, very much
Please
for
take care.
inviting me to make this presentation. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.